What's up, guys? How's it going? It's been a minute. I haven't felt like making a video at all. I'm not sure why. I always think about it. I'm like, yeah, I need to make some videos today. I need to make a video, anything, and I just don't. So here we are at the end of the tour. Pretty much, we've got 3 shows left. We're doing Kansas City tonight, which I think is going to be a rager. I think it's going to be the biggest show on the tour. I think it's the highest selling for sure. We've got close to 700 tickets already, so I think it'll be a good one. And then tomorrow we're going to be in Des Moines at Woolies, and then Sunday we're doing a show without Tropodelic and Joey. We're going to do a tattoo shop anniversary party in Cedar Falls, I think. Is it Cedar Falls? Cedar Rapids. Cedar Rapids. So yeah, we're going to do that, and the tour's been good. A lot of good crowds. People are pretty stoked when we roll out there. This is a run with Tropodelic. It's a co-headlining run, but they're headlining every night. They're playing last, and these are their strongest markets. Some of their strongest markets. So we agreed to play right before them. It's just sort of what you do when you're the band that has the most draw or the most experience in these certain markets. You tend to take the headlining spot, and even as a band that's been around as long as we have, and we've played these venues, these markets a lot over the last couple decades. Certain bands might have better draw, like Tropodelic is from Cleveland, and I guess they do a lot of Midwest stuff over the years. So it was no problem for us to agree to play, right before them. It's fine, Sometimes you look at that stuff and you're like, all right, if I take this direct slot with a band that I feel equal to, you wonder if it's a good look or if it's a bad look, on your band, because it's like, does it send a message like we're not, big enough to headline anymore, or on the decline, So I think you do have to take those things into consideration. I think most bands do. I think bands will look at us and say, okay, well, Ballyhoo wants us to come and open for them, but is that insulting to us? Is that good for us? Are we gonna get something out of this? And I think the best way to look at it is, if you decide, if you're a band that's been doing good numbers and you headline your own shows and you've sold out some stuff and you're bringing decent numbers out. I think the best way to look at it is like, okay, are we homies with this band? Like, are we cool? Is there respect there? And then are we going to get anything positive out of it? In a sense of like, maybe we'll play for people that haven't seen us play before, or maybe haven't listened to us before. Maybe they heard of us but never checked us out. So are we going to potentially pick up those fans? You never know, but I feel like when we do go play for people, like this tour, I know we played for new people that haven't seen us play before. People have told me, first time seeing you guys, and that's great. Like, these are clearly Trop's shows, but we're absolutely adding to it, and I think that's the idea. Is like, okay, are we going to add to this, and that'll justify like we have our own people, we have our own tickets, our fans come out, and it just adds to the show and it's all good? Or is it one of those things where we go and play and nobody really cares, and we're not really adding to the show? Because I would hate that. I would hate to not bring anything to the show, because that's what we agreed on. We knew that we were going to add to the show. It wasn't going to be like some big payday in exchange for nothing on their part. We're getting our money to do this, but we're also bringing something in return. Like, they're not just paying us for some look. It kind of gets into the weeds a little bit, but and it's not like any hard feelings or anything like that. Like you just want to make the right call, and I think both bands want to make the right call. And in my opinion, I think having Ballyhoo open for you, is a good look, in my opinion. But for us, it's like I go back to that, like, okay, is this a good look for us? Like, but I think in the case of Ballyhoo and Trop, like, I feel like it's just two homies helping each other out and just putting on a good show. And it was the same thing with Bumpin' Uglies last summer. Like, Brandon and I talked about this for a while, where thinking, like, if we combine forces, it'll be great. And it was, it was a proof of concept, and it totally smashed, just like we thought it would. And it was like that for a while. Like, all these bands looked up to us at some point, right? Like, these bands told me years ago that they loved us, and we inspired them, and that's great. These bands have been doing work, man, the last 10 years. They've been killing it. More, longer than 10 years. They've been making their own way, and it got to a point where bands like Tropidelic and Uglies were pretty much right up there where we are, where we've been. We're like the old heads, and we've been doing this for so long. You do take a hit to the ego a little bit. There is this feeling of, like, I always want to be on top. I want to be the band that leads the charge, but it's out of your hands. It's like, you don't know what these other bands are going to do and how they're going to grow their fan bases and how rabid they can be, what sort of excitement they're going to create along the way. We all share fans for sure, but these bands all have different crowds because their music attracted these people for a reason. I go back to, like, especially I'd say in the 2010s, which is like the weirdest decade for my band anyway. I was really focused on trying to write for radio and try to really go for, like, the big mystique and the rock star vibe, whereas, like, these other bands were more grassroots based and just sort of writing what felt good. And not to say that these bands aren't trying to write big catchy songs or anything, but there's something about their approach that was different than ours that made it a little more homegrown feeling. Maybe we weren't like that. We were just, I always wanted to be polished and radio ready, and writing the catchiest shit I could, and something that you could take any song from the record and put it on the radio that day, but in doing that, the kind of fan base that you attract, it might not be as loyal as some of these other fan bases, these bands that kind of really go. I don't know. It's real community based. It's kind of hard to explain, but maybe you guys are understanding it. But no, that's not to say. Obviously, we have the Ballyhooligans, man. They're some of the best fans on the planet, and people are just really, really loyal to us and really into what we're doing. So that's not to discount that at all. I guess for whatever reason, it was like the music from some of these other bands became a little more, I don't know, accessible or something. Like, maybe we were too polished for people's tastes. And this is a genre where it's more about the community and more about the connection to that community, from the artist. And I've always tried to be connected. I've always tried to be connected. I think my problem is I've always wanted to straddle the line. I've always wanted to do both. I wanted to have a loyal, rabid fan base and be connected to them, be accessible, but I wanted to have radio songs. I wanted to be on the radio, and I wanted to be on MTV. And that stems from the 90s when we started the band, back in the late 1900s. Back then when we started, it was all about getting signed to a label. It was all about being on MTV. It was all about being on SNL, getting on the cover of Rolling Stone. I wanted all of those things. Some of those things happened, not to the effect that, like, I wanted it to, but once we started getting on the radio in 2012, it felt like something big was happening. And then that next year, 2013, it just wasn't cool to have guitars on the radio anymore, it seemed, or at least rock guitars. You had like your stomp, your hey stomp bands. And then you had your like synthy bands, like, you know, I don't know, just rock wasn't the thing. And then in this genre specifically, rock was really not tolerated. Is that the word? It just wasn't popular. Reggae rock in the 2000s is not what it ended up being in the 2010s. Like, it was more about West Coast Cali vibes, chill, you know, cool, chill stuff. And rock was like, nah, this is too much. I just want to chill out, you know? But for us, we didn't want to go that way. Like, this is just not how we are, you know? Like, I wasn't going to imitate my friends' bands that were suddenly packing amphitheaters and riding on tour buses. I just wasn't going to do that, you know? Even though I would love to be on a tour bus. I would love to make that kind of money, you know? We've always been scratching at the surface, you know? Trying to break through. But we want to do it on our terms. We want to do it the way we want to do it. I don't want anyone telling me what I should be doing with my music, how I should be playing, what style I should be, anything like that. This style that you hear from Ballyhoo, punk rock, reggae, acoustic ballads, just pop, whatever, like that is the Ballyhoo sound. It's just, we call it beach rock, but it honestly, man, there's something for everybody, I feel like. But I think our reputation was just, you know, we're a rock band, I guess. I mean, people call us a reggae band, which is fine. It's whatever. I don't think we're reggae, but we fuse it all together, you know. And we've played many of those festivals and with a bunch of those bands. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. But our career suffered through the 2010s because we wouldn't fall in. We wouldn't just play super chill stuff, you know, front to back. Like, I just don't want to do that. I want to play punk rock. I want to rip when we play live. I want to have a rock show when we play live. That's just how it went, you know. And look, anything could happen, you know. We could have made a record like, you know, a slow, chill reggae record or something, and it could have just fallen flat. And it's probably what would have happened because it wouldn't have been from an authentic place. I think that authenticity is the whole thing here. You know, that's why we never went that way. But after the Girls record, like we kind of pushed in that direction a little bit, pop reggae with Girls. That was the furthest we'd ever taken it. And then we followed it up with Detonate, which is a rock record, because my dad died and I didn't want to write pop reggae songs. I just didn't, you know? And that's what happened. That's the honesty coming out. That's the authenticity of this band, the sound, you know? Because of all that, you know, we're not on a tour bus. We're not making a bunch of money. We're not filling out theaters, 500,000 people a night, because we just weren't the popular sound. Those bands that did that and just sort of they embodied all that, I'm happy for them. I'm so stoked, you know, that they're able to live off of their music like that. But for me and my guys, it's been rough, you know. It's been tough. We don't live extraordinary lives or anything like that. I'm not saying any of those guys do either, but I feel like next year will be 20 years of touring, and I feel like we should be a lot further than we are. That's what that is. And I was really depressed yesterday thinking about all this, and I was ranting in my notes app, you know, so I didn't want to put it on social media. I didn't want to put that vibe out there. And this is in no way like a poor me, feel sorry for me video. I'm just speaking to you guys from the heart here, how I feel all this is gone. And it's really hard sometimes, guys, and it's a lot more than usual. And I feel like I'm in a midlife crisis right now. I feel like I'm at that point. I've been there for a little while now, a year or two. My son just turned 15. He's going to graduate in 3 years. And I feel like I have nothing for him. I feel like I have nothing. I want to be in a bigger house, you know? We live in a townhome for the last 10 years now. And 10 years ago, I'd have been like, when I'm 44, when I'm 45, I better not be living here. We better be in a bigger house, and we better be on like a tour bus, or I'm going to quit. And here I am 10 years after that, you know? still doing this shit, and still wondering if we can take a bandwagon this summer, which we're probably not going to take a bandwagon this summer because we can't afford it, you know? And we're going to have to slum and go back to the van. And it's like, I know there's tons of bands out there that would kill to be in the position I'm in. They would kill to not have to ride in a van sometimes and be able to be on one of these things. I think at every level you're going to have your problems. You're going to get tired of things. Things are going to, you know, but for me, it's not so much that like, oh, we can't take a bandwagon, poor me. It's like, fucking really? 20 years of touring and we're still trying to wonder if we have the money to do these things we want to do? Like, I can't take my family on a proper week's vacation at the beach, you know, without thinking about money, and like, it's just super frustrating. I feel like my decisions, I mean, I know my decisions have led us here, you know. Again, who knows what could have happened back in the day? Who knows if we'd have went that way, if it would have caught on? I don't know. But sticking to your guns and holding on to your soul has its price. And for me, it's the decades of grind and money problems and arguments with my wife and not being there for kids' events. I missed my son's 15th birthday. I missed my son's 13th birthday. There's a price to all of this. And I'm down to stick it out a little bit longer. I want to see where it goes because this last year has been really good. It really has. Doubling our numbers in a lot of markets, and I want to see it through. So I'm going to keep writing, and I'm going to keep playing shows and giving it my all and performing at my highest level. And the guys are going to do the same. And we're just going to see this through, you know? But I do feel like, if I'm being honest, I do feel like there's going to be a point where I have to make a decision. I have to make a choice on what to do. I want my family to have everything they want. I don't need to be rich as balls. I don't need to live in some mansion. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want to have worries. I don't want to have money problems. I want my family to live in a bigger house. They want a pet. I want to get them a dog. I worry about vet bills and behavior training and things. All these things, you know. I don't need another expense. And I don't want to have to worry about that. I want to take my family on vacations. I want to take my wife out more. We don't get to do date night ever. Today's our 19th anniversary since we got together. We became boyfriend and girlfriend 19 years ago. So I want more for them. And if this trend, this momentum doesn't continue and things don't grow in the next year, I don't know if I can do it anymore. I just don't, you know? It might be weird for you guys to hear that. It's kind of weird for me to say it out loud on the internet, but I got to figure something out, you know? I got to figure something out. I need more people to hear this music, to hear this band, to see this band. There needs to be a flip. There's a number of tickets. There, like, every night, on average, I need to sell 500 or 600 tickets a night. On average. You know, it could be 700 one night, it could be 200 or 300 another night, but there needs to be an average of 500 to 600 tickets a night. 500 to 600 people at our shows every night. That will be what flips it right there. And then I feel like once we get that 500 or 600 people, it'll be easier to go to 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. You know what I mean? Get to the bigger rooms. We're trying to grow from these smaller rooms. We intentionally, a few years ago, started playing smaller rooms because we were playing these places that were too big for us. We couldn't pull more than 200 people a night, and it was frustrating trying to do that in a 600 cap room. It just looked awful. So you go back to playing the small rooms, and we've grown a little bit in the last year now, and I've seen it. So we just need to keep it going. That's what needs to happen, guys. That's what's been on my mind. This is why I haven't made any videos, I think, because I don't want to make depressing videos. I don't want to make videos of me just crying, you know? So I haven't made any videos because I've just been bummed. and depressed, thinking about my life and the life of my kids and the sort of life I'm giving my wife, and it bums me out. It's gotten to the point where I'm not having fun on stage some nights, and that's a problem, because all I can think about is money and is this going anywhere, so I try to give you guys honesty, speak from the heart, and not bullshit you, and this is from the heart right here. This is there's a lot of things that are still in the dark that I think maybe the public doesn't need to know about, but like when it comes to the band and my feelings on everything, on that, on my career choice, I feel like it's okay to vent a little bit, and honestly it kind of helps. It's like a journal entry. So that's what's going on in my world. We're gonna be done this tour in a couple days. I go home, and then I gotta fly to Texas next weekend for a couple days for Kicking in the Sticks. I'll be home for a few weeks, and then we take off again in June, back out with Tropodelic, and we've got our friends Authority Zero and Dale and the Z-Dubs on that one, and then we're in summer. Got the Maryland summer shows, Ocean City, Solomon's Island, Hopkins, and Havre de Grace, and then we take off in July out west of Texas and Florida and all that. So, and we've got some stuff to announce very soon, some really cool stuff. We have a new single coming out at the end of May, so I'll have more info on that soon. We're finishing up. I think the mix is done. I need to listen a little bit more, and then work on the art, and we'll have info for you guys very soon. But it's going to be, let's see, a little less than a month. The next single drops. So that is the info. All right, this one's kind of long, but subscribe if you like this kind of shit. Let me know if you like this video. Was this too long? Should I make it shorter? Did I talk too much? Let me know what you guys think. But I just feel like getting on here and just dropping some brain vomit every now and then is cool, Fuck you, it's my channel. All right. Kansas City, we'll see you tonight. All right, later.